Hey guys, it's Lane here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing our monthly ramble. It's a bit late, it's like a few days late. I thought I had a bunch of videos ready to go, and it turns out I didn't because I forgot that I hadn't recorded anything in like a week. So I messed up, and then I had a bunch of schoolwork to do, so I didn't have time to record until today, until 5:30 here on Friday. So this should go up about 7 on Friday, and then I have some videos for Saturday that are not ready to go, but I'll be able to do relatively quickly tomorrow. So yeah, today the ramble is about engaging with content, with or media literacy, or comprehension and stuff like that, and the nuance of it. And this is due to a random tweet that I saw that I read, and then I scrolled past, and I don't remember what it really was about. But I remember it had to do with media literacy and how people didn't have it and stuff like that. And well, I don't know. Media literacy is a skill. It's something that you need to learn to do. However, I don't think I really remember being taught that here in the US growing up. I remember there was a big emphasis on reading comprehension, which was like, you read this portion of a story. Do you understand how one thing led to the other in this story? And usually the answer was yes. It's pretty simple to follow. One thing leads to another, leads to another. And if you're kind of looking at like fantasy and political fantasy, it's usually like this person did this thing, which made this other person angry, which meant this thing, which meant this thing, and it keeps going. So comprehension is not that difficult. In terms of literacy and like understanding or like deeper analytical looks at things, I don't remember doing any of that to a massive extent until high school, when I started taking, AP classes, which, if you guys are not from the US, AP classes are basically supposed to be college level classes that you take in high school, but they're not. They're more like slightly more rigorous versions of your usual classes that you're supposed to take. So usually the AP English classes were about learning how arguments are made, and how to develop your arguments, how to understand arguments. And they would usually give you this giant list of things like juxtaposition and pathos and ethos and logos, and this giant list of things. And then you were supposed to read something, usually a old school book, and then dissect the story, understand what the story was trying to tell you, using this giant vocabulary list in order to find different types of situations or arguments that were being done in order to try to convince you, the reader, of something. And that is the closest I remember to media literacy that we ever covered, and I think that is what media literacy is in the modern day. But usually we used to call it rhetorical analysis, which is the same thing, I guess. And it's something I didn't really like. I was good at it. I'm actually, like when it came to school, I was pretty good at English classes. But it's not something I enjoyed, because broadly, I found it to be really annoying to try to decipher what this, 600-year-old paper was trying to tell me about the world from the viewpoint of this author that I didn't even know, that I didn't understand, that I had no context for, right? And so it was quite annoying. And to me, it felt pretty ridiculous, because like, just because I could pick 3 things from my vocabulary list and use them to say that the author was doing a certain type of argument, didn't mean that was what he was doing. And if my classmate chose 3 different vocabulary lists and said that the argument the author was making was completely different from my own, which one of us was correct? Neither one was correct. I think that was usually the answer. But the point was, can you structure your argument correctly in order to say that was what was happening? And so I guess that is that was annoying to me. And then later on, I remember we were taught more of that. And it was supposed to be kind of like from viewpoints, like from a postmodernist viewpoint or from this other thing viewpoint. But I don't remember ever being taught this, like what those viewpoints were. So to me, it was also a pretty useless class. And I think that was mostly because the teacher that I had for that class was not very good at explaining stuff, and expected us to already know without having any context for it. So that was like an issue with the teacher. But to me, that usually soured the experience of having this analytical thought process. And so when I read for fun, I don't necessarily try to be analytical or try to be very clear about what I think the author is telling me, because broadly, I don't care. And I think that a lot of people do this. They don't care what the author is telling them, as in like what the author is trying to portray in terms of their own values, what the author is trying to say about the world through the story, because they don't care about what that is. They want to be entertained, and I think that's usually how I look at things when I read, and I think that is a perfectly valid way of looking at things. However, the problem is, especially in the sphere that I'm in the kind of reviewing and what's it called, and conversational kind of fandom aspect that I exist in. The problem is when people that are aware that that's how they read try to engage intellectually with the story and try to engage intellectually with the fandom that they're part in, and they get automatically destroyed or ripped apart, ripped to pieces, verbally on Twitter, because none of what they're saying is actually aligning with the analytical, literary value of the story. Because when they initially read the story, they were reading it from a entertainment face value type of point, right? And so then they didn't bother to kind of look deeper into it, and then they try to engage with the fandom, and then the people that actually engage with the story like that initially, or maybe later on, find what this new person is saying to be utter BS. And that I think is usually where the conflict of media literacy and media literacy being dead comes from. It's the fact that one person is engaging with the story at face value for purely entertainment reasons, tries to get into the analytical conversation without having done the legwork, basically, and then gets angry when people don't respect their opinion, because everyone else that's been looking at the story analytically thinks that everything this new person is saying is complete BS. And usually it is BS, because you can't just like look at something at face value and then try to analyze it without having a deeper look at the story, right? And so I think that's where a lot of the conflict comes from. I personally do look at things analytically to an extent. That's why my reviews are made the way they are. They're a lot more structured than your usual anime review or manga review, because I like looking at things from those points of views. However, I don't look at the thematics or the underlying message, because I broadly don't care about what a Japanese guy thinks about the world when I'm not living in Japan, or when I'm not gonna understand their cultural background. And so I don't really mind that. However, there's certain things that make a lot of sense to kind of be analytical about, like the fact that One Piece is pretty political, and that there's certain levels of political messaging that Oda includes into his stories, whether that's intentional or not. That is completely separate. A completely separate discussion, because we don't really know. Oda doesn't talk about his political leanings while he talks about his manga, right? Like his author's notes are not about his political leanings. They're usually like, I'm happy everyone's reading, I'm happy you guys are happy, sorry I don't write more. And that's like that's meaningful, and I'm really appreciative that Oda is happy that people are reading his stuff, and I actually really hope that he takes more breaks than he really does, because he needs them. But that doesn't help me understand his political leanings, and so digesting his political talks in One Piece don't really stem from anything beyond what the page is telling me, right? And maybe someone's gonna watch this video and be like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? You're talking completely out of your ass. And the answer is, yeah, probably I am. I'm talking about how I interact with the world, how I'm interacting with entertainment, and why I don't really engage in these intellectual discussions that people try to have on Twitter, which, by the way, is a very difficult way of having an intellectual discussion, because broadly, I don't want to engage in them. And I do look at things analytically to an extent. Analysis to a certain level for certain stories does bring me a lot more enjoyment than just looking at stories at face value, but it is pretty rare that happens, and it only happens in certain contexts for certain stories. And usually it's with Western novels, not really with manga, because I want to look at manga as easy entertainment, and so that's how I engage with it. And I think that is a perfectly valid way of engaging, as long as you don't try to make that jump into the intellectual discussion without having done further reading, further research, or kind of like trying to do better with what you're trying to structure, right? Which is kind of difficult. And also, it doesn't seem to be the common thing to do on anime and manga fandom, because most anime video essays are not really very intellectual. Some of them are, and actually, I think the Black Clover theory guys usually are very good at this. Like, I've seen a lot of them even buy historical texts in order to try to understand the possible leanings of Tabata's writing a lot more, and I think that they do pretty well. I think a few Naruto people also do pretty good analysis on the thematics of Naruto, and I've seen quite a few videos that are really, really good, that even actually bring up Japanese literary essays that talk about Naruto. But I don't know, I've never really seen people do that for Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen, mostly because honestly, I don't think either of those stories are really all that valuable in terms of what they mean to society and to entertainment. Honestly, I don't really find them enjoyable, but that's on me. But I do think that's interesting if we get to see this happening more with One Piece. I mean, there are certainly a lot of people that talk about One Piece, and a lot of them recently have been pretty analytical and trying to connect things like that. But I think people don't really want to engage with One Piece like that, because they want to look at it as just a fun entertainment thing about, this little monkey guy going on and beating up fishermen and shit. But I think One Piece does have a lot of value in that. And I think that you don't have to be media literate in order to enjoy these stories. You just shouldn't engage with people that are trying to actually be intellectual about the stories they read, because you're going to get angry and frustrated at the fact that these people are, maybe ignoring what you're saying for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't know. There you go. That's my thoughts on that. Maybe this is a good video, maybe this is a bad video, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know what you think about my opinions on media literacy and engaging with media, specifically engaging with media through fandom, and how that might be beneficial or negative to you as an individual, and how wrong I am about my ideas. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.